We are joined by Representative Brad Sherman. He is a Democrat from California. He's a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee. He's also on the Financial Services Ranking Subcommittee member of the Capital Markets Subcommittee. Congressman, welcome to the program.
Good to be with you, Mimi.
So let's start with the GOP reconciliation bill. It passed the Budget Committee Sunday night and will be taken up by the Rules Committee early, apparently 1 a.m. in the morning, Wednesday morning. Your main points of disagreement with that bill?
Well, if you're going to commit a burglary, you want to do it at 1 in the morning. And they clearly want to hide this bill from the American people, have as much of the process as possible take place after midnight. I think perhaps the worst thing in the bill is it's going to increase the deficit by $5 trillion. That'll have a tremendously bad impact on economic growth, and it'll raise interest rates very substantially. They want to providing huge tax cuts to Elon Musk and others at that level of wealth, and they're taking $14 million people off of their medical assistance, chiefly Medicaid, but also Obamacare. So this is a billionaire's bill.
I want to ask you about the Moody's downgrade, since you're on financial services, and this is what they said. Quote, successive U.S. administrations and Congress have failed to agree on measures to reverse the trend of large annual fiscal deficits and growing interest costs. We do not believe that material multi-year reductions in mandatory spending and deficits will result from current fiscal proposals under consideration. I wonder what you make of the downgrade and the issue with the national debt and lawmakers not being serious about getting spending under control.
Well, we have got to have revenues that match our spending. We did that when I first got here in the late part of the 1990s. We spent like Republicans and we taxed like Democrats. We had a surplus and we had a great economy. Instead, this bill adds $5 trillion to the deficit. If it actually passes, I wonder whether Moody's would engage in an additional downgrade. And it's not the effect of the downgrade in that people buy U.S. bonds based on their own assessment, not necessarily Moody's. But it's reflective of the fact that we're doing a terrible job of running the federal government, its fiscal impact, and the economy as a whole. And I hope very much that we can get 4 Republicans to reject this tax bill, avoid the $5 trillion increase in debt, and keep people on Medicaid and on Obamacare. And
should this go out of the House and go to the Senate, what kind of changes would you be looking for from the Senate?
They do have a good paper shredding machine over there, and hopefully they'll use it. I expect that they will make major changes. One of the things they've got to look at is the deductibility of state and local taxation. You know, if Congress doesn't do anything, then people in California and around this country are going to be able to deduct their state and local taxes without limit, whatever they pay, on their income tax returns, as they have for decades and decades and decades. So we in California would benefit tremendously if we simply don't pass this law and allow the state and local tax deduction to come back. This idea of saying you're giving something by having a $30,000 limit is not a gift. You've got Republicans from New York, from New Jersey, from California voting for a bill that is imposing this severe limit. And the purpose of the limit, if you listen to the right-wing think tanks, is to try to force California to act more like Mississippi, to not have good schools, to not have a university system, and this idea of using the federal government and the tax code to try to force states to do less for their people is really a terrible idea.
What kind of specific budget cuts would you be willing to vote for, if any? Or do you think the solution is solely in increasing taxes?
Well, I voted for appropriate reductions in our defense bill. I voted for appropriate reductions in our agricultural subsidies. I think there are a lot of things that we can do on the spending side. And of course, we do need to defeat this Republican tax bill and its $5 trillion increase in the deficit.
You're a senior member of the Foreign Affairs Committee. A recent New York Times piece on President Trump's trip to the Middle East was headlined this way: on Iran, Gaza, Syria, and Yemen, President Trump is moving ahead without Israel, reshaping decades of foreign policy. Do you agree with that assessment? Do you think that Israel was left out of this shift in American foreign policy?
Well, I haven't actually seen a shift with regard to Iran or with regard to Israel. Well, what I'd be concerned about is entering into a nuclear cooperation agreement with Saudi Arabia that allows them to move toward a nuclear weapon. And what I'm particularly concerned about are the enormous bribes that are given just openly to Donald Trump. Not the $400 million plane, I'm sure you've covered, but these crypto transactions are harder to understand. But when Abu Dhabi, part of the Emirates, puts $2 billion into Trump stable coin, that is a huge transfer to the Trump family. And then while he was there, TikTok threw $300 million into his Trump coin, which is a $300 million gift to the Trump family. Not surprisingly, he has decided to violate the law and allow TikTok to continue to be owned by those same Chinese interests. So whether it is through crypto or whether it's the widely publicized plane, the effect of bribery on our foreign policy is just enormous.
I do want to ask you about the plane. The administration is insisting that this is a gift to the Department of Defense, and it is not a personal gift to President Trump. How do you respond to that?
An absolute lie. They say at the end of his term, when Trump leaves the White House, the plane leaves the Air Force and goes to Trump. Look at what happens here. First, the $400 million plane. Then we have to pay to disassemble the plane and look for all the bugs they will have put in. Then we have to put communications gear and safety gear on that plane. Many tens, hundreds of millions of dollars. And then after 3 years, we don't own the plane anymore. The plane is owned by the Trump family and the Trump Foundation. So this is not only a gift to the Trump Foundation, it's one that's very expensive to taxpayers.
Going back to your comments on crypto, there is a bill in the Senate. It's called the Genius Bill regarding cryptocurrency. Can you explain what that bill is and whether or not you would support it?
I certainly wouldn't support it in its present form. The goal here is to create a money market fund for tax cheats and drug dealers, and to not pay them any interest. So the people who put this together are well compensated. They have provisions in that bill that says if you have a, quote, stable coin, you're not going to pay any interest. So why would anybody put money in there? You've got money market funds, they pay 3-4% interest with total safety and a lot of regulation to make sure your money's safe. This is a relatively unregulated, zero interest. It is because they will not cooperate with the government. The money's in offshore tax havens and elsewhere, and they violate or they exclude themselves from the Know Your Customer anti-money laundering provisions. So they are literally creating a financial system that costs you 3 or 4% every year on your money, but allows you to engage in financial crime. And they think they're going to make a lot of money doing it. They've already made a lot of money. The crypto industry makes money literally by making money, literally by printing it, albeit electronically.
And as you know, last week, while President Trump was in Saudi Arabia, he met and shook hands with the new Syrian leader and lifted sanctions on Syria. Did that surprise you? And does that, do you agree with that, the lifting of sanctions on Syria?
We would have to have an understanding, and there might be a secret understanding, although the way that Trump just shoots from the hip, he may have forgotten this, to protect the Christian community of Syria, to protect the Druze, and to protect the Kurds. And without those understandings, without autonomy for the eastern part and some of the southern part of Syria to protect those minority communities, Trump will have had a handshake and a good PR campaign and say he's making progress. Let's see if the Druze are safe, let's see if the Kurds are safe, and let's especially see if the Christians of Syria are safe under this new regime.
And finally, I just want to ask you about the Ukraine war. As you know, President Trump did speak with Russian leader Putin yesterday on the phone over 2 hours, and then said that they would begin discussing an end to the war. What are your expectations on that front?
Well, it appears as if Trump is trying to force the Ukraine into total subservience to Russia. One of the essential plans of Putin is to tell Ukraine that they can't have much of an army in the future. Well, why doesn't Russia want Ukraine to have much of an army in the future? Because Russia wants to invade again, maybe not this decade, but next decade. So Trump is pushing Ukraine into surrendering territory, surrendering its sovereignty, and having a huge victory for the Putin invasion. It's not enough to talk to people. What matters is what you do. And his temporary cutoff of intelligence sharing with Ukraine, his temporary interruption of arms supplies to Ukraine, and the fact that he will not come to Congress and say we've got to continue to support Ukraine with another bill is going to put Ukraine in a very, very weak position. The Ukrainian heroism on the front lines, what their soldiers are doing, has protected Ukraine so far and might be enough. But to put them in that position with American policy is just terrible.
All right, Representative Brad Sherman, Democrat of California, member of Foreign Affairs and Financial Services. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good to be with you.